What's the worst physical pain you've ever experienced? 3-way tie. Kidney stone. Similar to what others have mentioned. I was curled up laying on the floor until I could get into the hospital. Broken tooth. I had a filling fall out. Then part of the tooth adjacent to that broke and the sharp edge was digging into the nerve. I was up all night in excruciating pain. Like an electric shock through my whole head. Until I could get to an emergency dentist the next morning. Broken toe. I broke my toe by dropping a large metal container on it. At first it just kinda hurt. But over the next couple of days as the swelling set in it became almost unbearable. Honestly. Probably last year. I was going through a treatment that made my white blood cell count drop. I don't fully understand the numbers, but the lowest I recall them spouting off was 0.05, whatever that means. So they gave me a shot to boost my immune system. They told me I'd be in severe pain for a few days. I thought I could tough it out. I was wrong. It simulated the bone marrow in my hips and lower back. The pain made me basically collapse. Couldn't breathe. Brought tears to my eyes, etc. Apparently. It's what a woman feels when she's giving birth. The doctor told me it's rated at an 8/10 on a pain scale right underneath bear attack lol. So yeah. 2-3 days worth of contractions essentially. Every 2 weeks. For 6 months. Ghost pains of shingles. Like a week after the rash had cleared. My skin would periodically feel like it was set on fire and wouldn't stop for up to an hour at a time. Root canal. Not enough lidocaine. As soon as they hit the root with the drill, I can only describe it as white pain took over my entire being. I couldn't react and it felt like time stopped. It was only a fraction of a second, luckily. The dentist realized it from my body flinching, I guess. Besides that, a migraine in the back of my head after certain recreational partner activities. Completely pounding. Sharp. And destructive. Lasted 4 hours. Vicodin did nothing. Ever had sticks in your eyeball? To pull the lens tight to flatten out the creases made from bad LASIK? I have. Nothing else even comes close. Weeks of scratching every time you blink. I can't see out of the eye. But still need glasses. Yay. All that for next to nothing. Calciphylaxis wounds. Doctors told me that they are pretty much the same thing as 3rd-degree deep tissue burns. They ran on the inside of my thighs from my groin to my knees. I had to go to the OR twice a week to be put under anesthesia just to change the bandages. DRs rate the pain as 10 out of 10. And as a bonus, I had kidney stones and pancreatitis during the whole mess. Fun times all around. A dog attacked me. It was a Belgian Malinois. They are trained attack dogs. This one was trained wrong apparently because the guy left his door open and the dog just ran out and bit me. Multiple times. I had to fight the ducker off. It was pretty scary. You could see the muscles and everything. Looked like raw steak. My arm swelled up really bad too. The doctors said it was one of the worst dog bites they had seen in this state. Pics maybe NSWF. A little gory. It wasn't the worst pain. But definitely terrifying. I had just gotten my license and had gone to the movies with some friends. I didn't get to see the movie much because I was too busy throwing up from a migraine. At that point in my life I was still new to the concept and really thought I could push myself through it. I was driving home when my arms went numb. And after that I lost about 2/3 RDS of my vision. Then I threw up. Still driving here. Finally make it home through all the tears and drag myself out of my car to dry heave for about a good bit. Sneak inside and take a shower. Never told a soul. Looking back, I should have pulled over and asked the paramedics on the side of the road for help. 2 tibial osteotomies. Basically a surgeon cuts your tibia almost all the way through in order to reposition the tibia and correct knee alignment. They make you walk the next day with a walker. I almost fainted after 3 steps. To continue the nightmare, I had to do something called bone distraction. As your bone starts to heal, You turn a screw that pulls the pieces apart so that your bone heals in a new position. Distraction is done every day for about 2 weeks. Naturally. All of this involves epidural nerve blocks, sedatives, and tons of hydromorphone and oxycodone. Lumbar puncture. They have you sit and hunch over and tell you not to move. Give you shots to numb. And then stick that ducker in there. Nope. I don't know how far she got that thing in me, but I ducking screamed and they had to hold me down so I wouldn't move and paralyze myself. I'm thinking the local anesthesia missed the spot or something. Duck that. They wanted to put me under to do it and I said duck that, I'm out. Also, getting stitches in the bottom of your foot doesn't feel too great. Screamed for that one too. Probably having a foreign object inserted into my uterus through my cervix. I imagine that is the first inkling of what childbirth would feel like. I had to have a suction abortion due to a sudden risk to my health during pregnancy. Literally a turned on vacuum in your uterus. I have never screamed so hard in my life. Now I have endometrial cancer and have to get biopsies every 3 months. It's the same thing but with a tiny manual tube that works on vacuum pressure instead of electricity. I still cry every time. It's worse than the chemo. It doesn't compare to other people's stories. But I fell off my horse into an electric fence once and just lay there while being bolted with quite strong electricity for a while. I also once fell off onto a jump and ended up hanging over the pole with 3 broken ribs. I slithered off the jump onto the ground and just gasped like a goldfish until I could properly breathe. A family friend was recently kicked in the face by her horse and broke her jaw and knocked out her teeth. Really horrific injury. I had a surgical cystoscopy. Afterward I had bladder contractions which had me haunched over the toilet. Tears streaming down my face. While my bladder bled out through my now very tender pee hole. The most painful part was the bill. They charged me an extra $500 on top of my quote because they decided to put water in my bladder. Literally just water. During a regular optometrist visit, the doctor found a small tear in my retina on the outside of my left eye. The surgeon I saw had to pry my eye partially out of its socket with a wooden stick. Then shoved a metal wand behind my eye and used liquid nitrogen to freeze the spot to make scar tissue to tack down the flap of retina. Doing all of this conscious without blinking. Still freaks me out to think about it. I was in a snowmobile accident when I was 12. Dad gunned it down a hill. And since it was so bright we didn't see the sizable snowdrift we were going off. We winded up about 10-15 feet in the air. And when we came down I cracked the small of my back on the bar for holding bags and stuff. I still have issues to this day. And I'll be 29 soon. Once I broke my leg and went to the hospital but they sent me home because they didn't see anything wrong with me. That lasted for 2 days till they called me back because they realized they ducked up. I had gastric bypass 10 years ago. There was a drain put in for my recovery while in the hospital. When it came time to remove it, a resident came in to do it. She tells me it shouldn't hurt. But I'll feel it as she takes it out. But, just to be safe, she has me hit my morphine button a couple times. We wait a couple minutes for it to kick in. Then she starts pulling. I immediately scream in pain and start bawling. She stops. Shocked. And says it really shouldn't hurt that much. Well, it ducking does. At that point, she says she can't leave it one stroke too way in. So, she just has to pull it out the rest of the way. It was probably no more than a couple seconds. But I felt the thing coming out. It was like she was pulling my intestines out. She was super apologetic the whole time. And more than a little confused. I think she may have even cried. Too. When she left, I just hit that morphine button a couple more times. Rolled over and tried to sleep. It was easily the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Second worst? When Alison L. kicked me in the gonads in 2nd grade for saying hi to her. I have had a lot of serious injuries. With long frustrating recoveries. And I don't generally accept pain medicine except for in extreme situations. Shattering my heel was not extreme enough of a situation for me to take painkillers. Most painful thing that can think of. Working on the pickup truck recently, some road grime fell into my open eyeball and it was the most horrific feeling I've ever had. Labor. Ducking labor. 32 hours of it. And it took forever for my cervix to dilate enough to get the epidural. And they used pitocin to induce it, due to the cord being wrapped around my daughter's neck twice, so it was extra painful. Run over by a truck. 19 broken bones. Punctured lung and concussion were the major immediate injuries. It actually did not hurt at first. Not even the first hour or two while the first responders were opening the car with the jaws of life. I passed out from lack of oxygen during extraction. Thankfully. But the morphine dose was not correct. Or I did not process it normally. And I overdosed and went into respiratory arrest. The pain was so severe my son-in-law told me he could hear me screaming when he got off the elevator. They put me in a medically induced coma for several days. I was on 3 diff pain meds for 6 months. And the first 4 months were hell. Pure hell. Never ending pain. Only dulled. I cracked a rib and had a chest infection while also having whooping cough. Easily the worst time of my life. I had a spinal surgery that required breaking the ribs on my right side. Sneezed. Sobbed. Worst moment of the whole surgery. I was on my bike and hit my van in 2003. Long story short. A mass was found in my lung that needed to be removed. After the surgery to cut into my lung and remove a piece of it, I was put in the recovery room. I remember slowly waking up. And then the pain started. And got worse. And worse. And I was hitting the morphine button frantically. But it just kept getting worse. The nurse forgot to hook up my morphine drip. So I got to experience the full pain of the surgery. Appendicitis, in the middle of finals. Went from my stomach feels weird to, ow, if this doesn't feel better when I'm done with my practice test I'm going to the doctor too. I can't even rockus enough to read. Better walk over now too. I can barely walk up the stairs at the health clinic. Was in surgery that night. When I had a kidney stone. Intense. Sharp pains in my right side and back. All I could do was curl up in fetal position. My dad is a 6'7" former Marine and sailor. While in the Marines he did infantry guard. He was. And still is. One tough son of H. A kidney stone put him on the floor in tears. I was 10. I think. I was prone to ear infections. We were going to come home from a vacation at my grandparents' house. I told my mom my ear hurt. And she didn't believe me. She thought I was lying so we could stay longer. A few days later. The ear infection was bad enough that my jaw was swollen and sore. I couldn't chew because my jaw hurt so much from my ear infection. She believed me then. But that was the day we were leaving. So there was nothing to do until we got home. I later found out I had an ear infection in both ears. But I didn't feel the second one because the first one was a lot worse. I spent 5 hours on an airplane that day. Endometriosis. What's worse is that the pain changes every month or so. So I never know what to expect. Burning pain in my pelvis. I'll walk like I'm 90 for a day. Stabbing pain in my left ovary. Curl up for a few hours and hope that people think I'm passing a kidney stone. And what's even worse is that people think it's regular PMS. I have a disease where my immune system attacks my organs. Long story short, all my skin burned off, looked like 2nd and 3rd degree burns, on every single part of my body. During this, a few of my organs weren't working so I had to get a colonoscopy and it only goes more downhill from there. So imagine this. 15-year-old girl, 20 now. All skin peeling, burning, blistering, and falling off. Feet, butt, and booty hole included. And I gotta drink the colonoscopy prep that basically makes you shit all day until it's all out. I've got no skin on my feel and butt. You gotta run to the bathroom. Go. Wipe. Go back. all while hooked up to about 20 machines. It was a jolly ole time. Edit. Thought I'd add that they had to remove my appendix during that stay, so that was also a super fun time. Since people have been asking, I have lupus along with 4 different types of skin: lupus, sclem, discoid, bullous, tens, and an unknown form of lupus. I have a severe and complex case of lupus. My immune system attacked my skin, which is what made it do what it did. I have something called trigeminal neuralgia. It is apparently the most excruciating chronic medical condition humans can have. The attacks are on the same pain level as your face literally being on fire. So if something touches my face wrong, or I accidentally chew on the bad side of my mouth, or I get too cold, or sometimes for absolutely no reason, I get to have one of those lovely face fire attacks. It's called the suicide disease. And I get it during a particularly bad episode. I ended up screaming at my husband to heal me. After reading these comments, I've come to the conclusion that I've never been in true immense pain. Time to move along. Gallbladder attack, gallstones attack. It came on slowly and wasn't that bad, but it just wouldn't stop. After an hour I kept saying if I could get a second to take a breath without pain, I'd be okay. Fortunately it ended after 4 hours, and 2 weeks later the ducker was gone. Fun extra, my wife didn't want me to upstage her. I had my gallstone attack on a weekend. Got all the tests and had surgery set for 2 weeks. The following weekend, my wife had a gallstone attack that lasted all weekend. She was stubborn and didn't want to go to the ER. Monday we go to the hospital and she gets emergency surgery to get it out. Gallstone was stuck. Gallbladder full of infection. It was really bad. She has a week-long hospital stay to make sure no infection spread, and finally came home 2 days before my outpatient surgery. Moral of the story is, and she agreed to it, I drag her kicking and screaming to the ER if I feel like things are bad and she needs to go. I had a perirectal abscess. It's an infection that starts in your rectum and come out of your butt cheek. That in itself was painful. More painful than tearing my ACL. Now the worst physical pain was getting it drained. They had to stick it with a small amount of Novocaine. Prior to lancing it, the Novocaine injection was the worst pain I have ever felt. It literally felt like they were injecting hot lava into my already ridiculously painful abscess. Apparently what came out was a bloody milkshake. And there was a lot of it according to the doctor. I actually had to get this done 2x. Prior to getting the surgery for the permanent fix. I have to say, I don't wish that pain upon my worst enemy. Broken wrist and finger had me crying like a baby. I was only 10 at the time though. When I was 13 I broke a finger and it took 5 weeks to heal. Less than 1 week after I removed the splint, I broke my wrist on the other hand playing football. I started crying. Not only because of the pain, it hurt like hell, but mostly because I would have to use a cast for another month or so. Right in the middle of the summer holidays. I was devastated. Tear gas. I was standing on some stairs to a building during a protest when the cops suddenly threw a tear gas grenade that landed right by the stairs. I had to run right through it to get away. Felt like having razors shoved into my eyes, throat, and nose. I know this says physical, but the pain from losing my dad unexpectedly was physical. I literally had a broken heart. I was hospitalized for 3 days at one point. Canker sores on the uvula. Feel pulsating pain every time I breathe and the air dries it up, making it even more irritating. Swallowing is excruciating, especially food. And if a piece of food gets stuck there, you start considering starvation for a while.